what's up, everybody? Marcos Villegas here in Las Vegas, being joined with Stephen Espinoza. We're heading into another big pay-per-view, Canelo versus Munguia, this weekend on Amazon Prime pay-per-view. A lot of interesting stuff happened yesterday, Stephen. I didn't see you here, but I know you know what happened. What's your take on the whole Canelo confronting Oscar? And I thought they were very, very close, I felt, to something bad happening.
See, I'm going to have to start adjusting my travel plans because I got caught in a flight delay, and this is all unfolding as I'm on bad airplane Wi-Fi. So I'm like, and I'm getting little clips, like I can see 2 seconds of the video, and then so it was painful. It was painful to see. But look, I'm curious as to the timing because you were there at the kickoff press conference. We didn't see this kind of animosity.
Okay, Oscar did tell me in the build-up when it was announced that he was going to say stuff, but to build up the fight. But I felt he was trying to get under Canelo's skin, but what Canelo said is that's years of resentment that finally boiled over.
And that's sort of my point. Like, I wonder if this was, a ploy by Oscar to sort of distract and generate anger. And most fighters don't fight well when they're angry, and maybe that's part of the plan. But having said that, once it happened, and then the dam sort of burst, both guys clearly had a lot to get off their chest. And it just kept going and going. And there was a seemingly endless supply of material there that just kept it going. But at the end of this, it's hard to say. Canelo, after 60 fights, has seen it all. I don't know that any of this impacts him. But clearly there was a lot that both guys wanted to get off their chest.
Your perspective on that. You spent a lot of time with both, so just kind of your perspective on the whole feud.
Look, I can see both sides. I think if you tell any fighter, I built you, there's going to be a negative reaction because it's never that simple. I'm not saying that promoters don't build fighters. Of course they do. But it's never that simple. There's obviously a lot of hard work, a lot of personal effort, a lot of personal investment from the fighter as well. So when someone says something sort of outright, remember, I built you, it's almost an automatic knee-jerk reaction. It's like, wow, you're saying I had nothing to do with it? And look, among all of this, I think you have to look at it and say, if there's somebody who really built, it's the Mexican TV network that carried him to that point. Because by the time he got to, it's not like, Golden Boy was dealing with an unknown quantity at that point. He was a star in Mexico, and that gave him a boost. Now, Golden Boy did, certainly support him and continue to grow, but it's not as simple as just, hey, I built you, and that's the end of the story.
Yeah, that's very uncharacteristic for Canelo to have an emotional outburst like that. But thinking in hindsight, I think maybe it was Oscar's way of trying to get under his skin, but it might backfire on him too. Canelo might go out guns blazing against Hyman to kind of prove a point and look at Oscar after the fight.
The irony is the thing that I immediately thought about was, strangely, De La Hoya Mayweather. And the reason why, and Oscar has admitted as much after the fact, is there was that press tour and Floyd did everything he could to get under Oscar's skin. And weeks and weeks later, when he got to the fight, Oscar admitted he was still angry, and he fought angry, and it used up a lot of energy, and he didn't fight the strategic fight he should have. So, there's some precedent. Yeah, anger can get in the way of your strategy if you're not careful.
Yeah, we may have seen something similar like that with Devin and Ryan. And speaking of that, I know you heard the news, Ryan failing that test. We're still awaiting the B sample, but what's your take on it? What's your initial thoughts on the situation?
Well, my initial take is I'm disappointed for the sport because it was such a boost for the sport. It was such a great fight, and both guys showed a lot of surprising elements. And upsets like that are great for the sport. I mean, as long as you're not a sports book, obviously, they got killed. But there was such a high coming out of that sport and a buzz coming out of that fight and a buzz around the sport. And, and this certainly puts a damper on that. So, look, PEDs are never a good thing. You don't have to say that. But aside from the obvious, I think it's, I'm disappointed for the sport overall that we couldn't keep this momentum up, and instead of coming into what I think is going to be another, great action fight with Canelo and Munguia, that we're instead talking about, how the last fight that we saw didn't turn out as well as we thought it would.
You're familiar with VADA and the testing in the window. A lot of people bringing up, it's kind of curious that they released it after the whole Canelo-De La Hoya thing. If it takes 72 hours, why didn't it release it before? But you knowing the procedures, let us know and let our viewers know, how does it work when they collect something, when they report something, and when does it get to you and everyone else?
Well, the reality is a lot of times the narrative and the story is pushed by a leak somewhere. And I'm sure that, everybody involved probably would have wanted to wait until later on and probably until that B sample came in and more information was available, because the story is inevitably going to come out. But I think, I start to hear some rumors, and that usually forces people's hand. So, I understand it. It's big news. But I think that's why it came out like before we have full definitive A and B samples. I mean, I think the other interesting open question will be what happens with the commission test, because we rarely get one of these positives or potential positives that corresponds to when the commission is testing, because VADA is testing so much further out than the commissions often do. So here we know we have a potential positive like Friday, Saturday, same window that the commission is. So it's going to be interesting to see what the commission test says. If it doesn't come back positive, the question is, does that say something about the state of where our commission tests are and the fact that maybe the states don't have the resources to be able to keep up with state of the art like someone like VADA does?
Yeah, I've always heard that the commission tests are very basic. They're not thorough. It's just basically a piss test, and it is easy to evade them because they don't have the funds to do the thorough testing like VADA does.
Right. And people forget, the New York Commission, the Nevada Commission, California, those are all state agencies that are subject to the state budgets. And, at the end of the year when, the states are setting their budgets, you can imagine where the Boxing Commission comes on when you're funding schools and, you've got climate change and weather events and all these other demands on the state budget. You can see that not a lot of money is going to be left over committed to combat sports commissions. So I certainly don't blame the commissions, but look, it does. You do see commissions catching positives. It's sort of surprising sometimes because you see it more from the private testing organizations, but it's certainly something that that I think bears. It'll be interesting to see because I think it'll be a little bit of a referendum on the state of the art of the commission test.
You would think Nevada, the fights bring so much money that they would allot more to that fund for testing. You would think, but that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah. There's a lot. There's a lot of business that it comes in Nevada, like California, like New York are some of the leading commissions, and got a lot of really smart, very qualified people. But by the same token, at the end of the day, when the public looks at the budget and says, where are my tax dollars going? Not a lot of them, unless they're combat sports, are going to be saying, hey, we should be spending more on combat sports.
Very true, especially in Nevada where the school ranking is kind of low, but I won't poke at Nevada anymore. Hey, it's rumor time. Steven, you ready?
Okay, let's go.
All right. Rumor mill says that this Tank Amazon Prime pay-per-view will be the last pay-per-view with Amazon Prime.
Oh, I hadn't heard that one.
Yeah.
News to me. I'd be very surprised. There's a deal that's been signed, so that's one that I hadn't heard. Completely unaware of that.
Yeah, so that bank false.
As far as I know, no. That would be a big departure from everything that everyone's been planning so far.
The status of the next events after the Tank pay-per-view. I know on the press release initially there was supposed to be some Amazon Prime programming. When could we see that further on in the year, and what other matchups are you guys looking forward to make in September and the other months?
Well, look, at some point, and I think we've talked about this before, the rollout was going to be intentionally slow. And rather walk before you run in a lot of different things. And there's a lot of different things promotionally you've seen from Amazon, if you're paying attention, on this fight that we didn't see on March 30th. So it's a slow rollout. Eventually there's going to be obviously non-pay-per-view fights as well as the pay-per-view fights. And there's been, there's some work done on a June non-pay-per-view fight. Turned out, not to happen. So, we're looking at date. We've got a date. Don't ask what it is. It's penciled out for July, and starting to work on that. And I know, PBC and TGB have got, a lot of fighters who are looking for dates. So I think, at some point, things are going to speed up and towards the pace of the schedule.
Who could we potentially see on that July card?
Well, I just, look at and see like who's available, like who needs to come back. So I don't want to break any confidences, but if you look at the PBC roster and say, look, who hasn't fought in a while and who's a headline fighter, there's 2 or 3 guys which stand out.
So now what's going on with the August 3rd card? How did that all come about? Can you give me some background on how that came to happen, and what's that relationship going to be like now going in the future?
Look, I didn't have a lot of involvement with it, but I think, look, it's like a lot of the Saudi cards come in. They've got a big checkbook. They can sort of make really attractive offers. And those are some intriguing fights, so it's that simple. PBC has always been clear that, they're not going to stand in the way of their fighters getting the right opportunities. And, this is proof of that.
Okay, I wasn't sure if, you guys are starting to forge a working relationship with Riyadh Season, with Mr. Al Sheikh, with future cards.
Look, again, I haven't been involved, much in that regard, but that would be news to me. I think it's one card, and then, they'll take the rest as they come.
So on an ending note, Stephen, so I guess you're officially, permanently with PBC now, or what's going on?
Look, I don't have a long-term contract or whatever it is, but I have been hired to supervise the TV production, the live TV production, the gloves off, the shoulder programming. Operating as executive producer, which is what I did on March 30th. As much as I like coming to fights, and I come, on the PBC fights, I'm working as well.
So you're not doing anything with Showtime anymore?
No. They got rid of sports. They got rid of a lot of stuff. It's a much narrower programming offering at this point, and I've closed that chapter, unfortunately, because I think we did a lot of good work.
You guys certainly did. It helped elevate the sport over the years. Stephen, good chatting with you. Appreciate it, man. Stephen Espinoza, Marcos Vegas here in Las Vegas.